President, please be seated. The court is now back in session, and I'd like to hand the floor to the lead co-lawyers for civil parties for their key document presentation. You may proceed. Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honors, parties, civil parties, and everyone in and around the courtroom. I'd like to make my key document presentation regarding the treatment against the Cham people. The first document that I refer to is E3/6718, which is a civil party application of Matkar with the Khmer EN at 005635555260, and there is no English translation, although the translation into English was requested through ITU. And allow me to quote the excerpts from this civil party applicant. I am Matker. My current address is in Phum Ti Pram Village, Svai Klang Commune, Krochma District, Kampong Cham Province. On the event of the rebellion by Svai Klang villagers, Phum Ti Pram, when the Khmer Rouge took control of Phnom Penh in 1975, people who lived in the cities were evacuated to rural areas. The elderly were carried by horse carts to villages, approximately 10 people per cart, and there were 4 to 5 carts in total. I do not know where the Khmer Rouge, whom I did not know, evacuated them to, but I know that many did not return to the village. I believed all were killed by the Khmer Rouge. The elderly people that the Khmer Rouge took included Li Pat's father, named Li Pat, Ali, and Li Sukai's father, San Li, who were killed by the Khmer Rouge. I do not know why the Khmer Rouge killed these elderly people. I heard from a Khmer Rouge cadre, Auk male, who was Khmer and security chief of Krochma district, who said during a meeting that the capitalists had all to be purged. However, I did not know who these capitalists were. After the announcement, people from the village continued to disappear. At that time, chief of Phum Ti Pram village was a Khmer Rouge cadre, Mat, and so were the village security chief. As villagers continued to disappear at night, I heard rumor of a Khmer Rouge plan to arrest a group of 20 villagers, and then for the second group, they will take 200 more villagers. They already had a plan as whom they would take away. Having heard that, the elderly people who remained in the village made a plan to rebel against the Khmer rules, who wanted to cleanse the ethnic chant. The Khmer rules mistreated the Cham people more than they abused the Khmer people. For example, if a Khmer Islam wanted to go anywhere, they needed to ask for travel permission from the Khmer rules. Otherwise, they could not go. The Khmer rules prohibited the Cham people from studying the Quran, and they forced them to study the Khmer language in order to educate the Cham language and literacy. I believe that was the reason the villagers of Phumti Pram village revolted. The elderly people in the village plotted a rebellion against the Khmer rules. I forget the names of those who involved. However, I can recall that there were a Ma from Krochma, which is now called Sof Punjamin, as one of the masterminds behind the rebellion against the Khmer rules. On the eve of the rebellion, the Khmer rules spoke of selecting 20 people to be killed. Having heard that, the villagers planned to rebel and to prevent the Khmer rules from killing the villagers. At night time, if the Khmer rules called anyone out from their homes, the plan was to close the door and scream loud enough for the nearby villagers to hear. When hearing the screams, a villager banged the drum as a signal for other villagers to hear and signaled that it was happening. After that, villagers armed with knives and axes went to where the Khmer rules were located. That night, there were many Khmer rules people. The exact number was not known due to darkness. The villagers fought against the Khmer rules, and as a result, a Khmer rules cadre named Chet died. I joined the rebellion, but I was not at the front line. I was at the third front line because my wife had just given birth. The rebellion lasted 2 nights and 1 day, and the Khmer Rouge cadre surrounded the village and ordered the villagers to disarm, and they were evacuated to Wat Dam Chray Pagoda and Wat Kany Chok Pagoda in Dam Chray village, Krochma commune, Krochma district, Kampong Cham province. At Wat Dam Chray and Wat Kanchok pagodas, the Khmer Rouge separated women and children to stay separate from the men who were ordered to stay at Ksach Protest School in Krochma district, Krochma commune, Kampong Cham province, which was about 1.5 kilometers from Wat Dam Chray and Wat Kanchok pagodas. I was detained by the Khmer Rouge at Ksach Protest School. There were 7 members in my family, including my parents, my grandfather, Mat Musa, my younger brother, Mat Sin, my wife, Sof Man Yan, and my daughter, Pao Siyas, who was about 2 months old. My mother, my wife, my younger brother, who was about 19 years old, and my daughter were all ordered to stay at Wat Dam Tray Pagoda, while my father, grandfather, and I were ordered to stay at Ksai Pracha School, Krochma Commune, Krochma District, Kampong Cham Province. The Ksai Pracha School had 3 rooms, and each room housed about 40 people. Having stayed there about a week, a Khmer soldier who was a guard there carrying a list and began calling out names from the list. In the room which I stayed, the Khmerus called 7 people out. I do not remember whom, but amongst them were my other brother-in-law, Al Him, and my sister-in-law, Sim To. All were ordered to return home. Having stayed at Ksai Pracha School for about a month, I was released by the Khmerus to meet my wife and children, and then we were evacuated to another location. I asked my mother and my other sister if they had met my brother or sister-in-law. They replied that they had not, so I believe that those on the list were all killed. At Ksai Pracha School, the Khmerus abused and starved the villagers. The Khmerus provided a ladder of gruel to each person to eat. The Khmerus no longer allowed villagers to bathe two at a time because the school was near the river bank. If someone ran slowly, the Khmerus would beat him or her. At that school, the Khmerus closed the doors and windows tightly, keeping light and wind out. Detainees such as Maroon, Tesrain, Sofster, who died in 1999, and other villagers whom I do not recall their names. After 30 days of detention at Ksai Pracha School, the Khmerus brought rowboats to take the villagers to Chirting village, unknown commune of Krochma district, Kampong Cham province. All 7 members of my family traveled by boat, and when we arrived at Chirting village, the Khmerus ordered the villagers to walk to 3 separate villages, namely Bonti Chai, Chai Sambat, and Dambai, in Dambai commune, Dambai district, Kampong Cham province. And I will now move on to the second civil party applicant. And I refer to applicant, civil party applicant Mat Musa, Khmer EN at 00499859. In English, 01063871 and the French EAN is at 00897184. And the civil party application is E3/6035. The civil party mentions about the events that also happened in Chiyu village in Kampong Cham province, and allow me to read the excerpt from the civil party application as follows. In 1976, Angka introduced the collective eating regime. At the time, Chams suffered difficulties in freedom of expression, worshipping of our God, and eating. When the Khmerus wanted to mistreat the Cham people, they cooked rice gruel with pork for us to eat 2 or 3 times a day, and if any Cham refused to eat the prepared meals, Angka would take them to the security center for execution. And if we refused to eat, we had no choice but to starve ourselves, because we do not have our own kitchen utensils, not even a spoon. And when we were so hungry, we had to pick up some tree fruits without asking for permission from Angka. And if that is the case, then we would be punished. Even the fruits from the trees we had planted ourselves around the house were not allowed to be picked, let alone the fruits on the trees which belongs to others. Especially Angka was known immediately when there was a smoke from any cooking. It had employed a lot of spies, mostly children, to spy on us. And again, I'd like to read some information from the same civil party applicant in his supplementary information form, that is document E3/6035A, with the Khmer ERN and 00584903, and English 00858208, and French at 00881065. And I'd like to read the following excerpt from the supplementary information form of Mr. Mat Mosa. 3. Persecution of the Cham. Between 1975 and 1976, the Khmerus arrested and executed former soldiers and 17 people. Khmeru soldiers also called me for questioning about my background. They asked me if I had been a soldier. I said no. Yes, at the time my name had not been entered in their list, and those who had implicated me had already been executed by the Khmerus. Finally, I was released due to lack of evidence. After the executions, there was no classification between the best people and the new people. During the Khmerus regime, they had me work as a cook, because they knew that I was a Cham and that I dare not steal pork, Angka's pork, to eat. They mistreated the Cham people, such as forcing us to eat pork. Later, I was tasked with finding fish in the river. The Khmerus always humiliated us, calling us the stateless people who needed to be completely rooted out. And I'd like now to move on to another civil party applicant, which is the supplementary application of LS. Here I refer to document E3/6226A. At the Khmer EN 0058 4410 211. English 01184705, and French 01202983. I'd like to read the following excerpts. During the colonial regime, I was a peasant living in Trapiang Chu village, Bang Commune, Barai district, Kampong Thom province, with my family. In early 1975, the Khmer Rouge militiamen evacuated the villagers to Dao village, Batsna commune, Barai district, Kampong Thom province. Religious observance in my village was strongly restricted. For example, we were forced to eat meat collectively in a cooperative, which was under the eyes of the militiamen. Sometimes people were threatened to eat the meat. One of my villagers, Tam Som, was forced to raise pigs, feeding pigs at the backyard of my house. In late 1978, a Khmer Rouge named Jam took him away to be killed at night because of his complaints. Tam Som was detained in Batsna cooperative prior to being killed. I secretly prayed for about a year, but I stopped doing that. When the Liberation Day was approaching, because I was afraid of being executed, I also witnessed the Khmer Rouge mass graves. The Khmer Rouge treated the Khmer people in my village less severely than the Cham. If any Cham said something wrong, he or she was more likely to be punished than the Khmer people. I personally think that this kind of treatment was a form of discrimination against the Cham people. And I'd like now to move to another civil party applicant, that is Mat Hat. Document E3/6725. There is no English or French translation, although the translation request was made on the 3rd of August 2015. And allow me to read this document. My name is Madha. I am 69 years old. I live in Phum Tipram village, Svai Kliang commune, Krochma district, Kampong Cham province. I would like to file a complaint with respect to what happened during the Khmer Rouge as follows. In late August 1975, the Cham people in Phum Tipram village, Svai Kliang commune, organized a rebellion against the Khmer Rouge soldiers because they arrested villagers every day and forbade us from practicing our religion and praying. I witnessed my neighbor named Sam Min, who was being arrested by two Khmer Rouge soldiers. They said that they needed him to go with them quickly after he got off the stair from the house and reached the ground. His hands were tied behind his back, and he was escorted towards the east, along with some other villagers. And I did not know where they were heading to. The Cham people could no longer tolerate the oppressions, and they engaged in the rebellion as a result. I will skip the lengthy information of the civil party applicant, and I move to another civil party applicant named Lee Pat. And I'd like to refer to his document with the Khmer EN at 0056 3582 to 84, English 0106 9332, and French 01 139851, and these EINs refer to document E3/6719. And I'd like to make the following to read the following excerpts. The event of uprising in Svai Clan. 2 months after the arrest of my father, there was an uprising in Svai Clan commune. After an early uprising in Kopal village, Pamui commune, Kruchma district. 2 days before the revolt in Pumti Pram village, Svai Clan commune, Kruchma district, Kampong Cham province, I heard people whose names I do not know saying that there was a plan to arrest 50 to 60 more villagers. The news terrified the villagers. They did not know who were going to be arrested by the Khmer Rouge. Having heard of this rumor, the Khmer Rouge started restricting the practice of Islam. They did not allow the Cham people to pray, nor did they allow women to wear the long scarf, that is the hijabs. They also ordered the Cham people to have the Cham women to have short hair, though they know doing so contradicted Islamic rules, because women must wear hijabs to hide their long hair. Women Muslims would be presumed to have committed a sin and go to hell if they breached the Islamic religious rules. The revolt started at 8 p.m. At the start, 20 to 30 villagers started beating the drums in an attempt to call other people to join the revolt. It lasted from 8 p.m. that night until 7 p.m. the next day. Then a number of the Khmer Rouge soldiers who were armed with B-40 rocket launchers and rifles rounded up the villages. They then started shooting at the villagers to suppress them. Because all the other villagers did not have any weapons to confront the Khmer Rouge, a large number of them were shot dead. Those who could make it alive were later arrested. The revolt took place in Pumti Pram village, Svai Clan commune, Kruchma district, Kampong Cham province, and at that time I was just about 15 to 16 years old. I and my elder sister Li Ning and my mother Mat Yom, together with my younger sister Li Sombro and Li Paita, as well as approximately 1,000 families, were evacuated to Kruchma commune, Kruchma district, Kampong Cham province. The Khmer Rouge separated men, women, and children from their families. The reason the Khmer Rouge separated the men and the women because they accused men from Pumti Pram village of Svai Clan commune as enemies. As for me, I lived with my mother and sisters. And I move on to another civil party applicant. And here I refer to civil party applicant Sofwini, and the document that I refer to is E3/5050 and Khmer EN 0056 5287, English 0106 0089, French 0093 2703 204. Allow me to quote it again. He said that there were no religious practices of any kind. The Khmer rules eliminated them all. Muslims were not allowed to wear Muslim attires. In the same document, a bit further down, the civil party applicant stated the following: religious practices were strictly forbidden. My family is Muslim. The Khmer rules force us to eat pork, or, at times, they lied to us by making us eat porridge with pork. Muslims, especially the young children who could not stand the hunger, had to force themselves to eat pork. Unwillingly, they had to violate the rule of their religion. They forced us to eat pork, and if we did not, they would send us to be investigated by the higher ranking officers. In other words, we would be killed. Some people agreed to eat, while others did not. They would share 200 grams of pork to each of us, and had a militiaman spy on us to see whether we consumed the food or not. Some Muslims exchanged the pork for some salt. And allow now to move on to the information of the last civil party applicant in relation to the treatment of the Cham people. That is a document E3/4892 with Khmer at 0054 0804 206 and English at 0089 0956 and French at 0089 4003. I'd like to make the following a quote. I am Ahmad, male, currently living in Phum Pram village, Svai Klem commune, Krochma district, Kampong Cham province. I would like to make the following complaints. 1. The ban on Islamic practice. The Khmer rules entered my village since 1970. Only in 1975 did the Khmer rules begin to repress the people. High-ranking people in the village were arrested by the Khmer rules in 1973, including my father. He was arrested in 1973 and had since disappeared. My father's name was Manhat. In late 1975, the Khmer rules banned praying of our Allah, and women had to keep their hair short, which was a violation of the Islamic religion. They prohibited us from speaking the Cham language. 2. Suppressing a revolt by Cham people. In late 1975, perhaps in September, which was almost the end of the Ramadan, people in my village began to revolt against the Khmer rules' mistreatment. Before the revolt, Arrests had been made constantly, which explained why the people joined the revolt. The people in Svay Kleng used machetes and axes in protest. They arrested and killed a Khmer Rouge member, Chet, a Khmer citizen working in Svay Kleng commune. Then the Khmer Rouge came to surround Svay Kleng village. Men were arrested and taken to a tobacco warehouse located to the west of Prek Tadung Bridge in Krochma commune. I was also detained at a tobacco kiln, while women were taken to pagodas and temples. At the tobacco warehouse, I received only 2 small bowls of thin gruel for each meal, or twice a day. The food was not sufficient. I was detained there for about 20 days. At the warehouse, I saw the Khmer Rouge beat and persecute the people. I remember that the Khmer Rouge beat a man named Man and another villager, Lo, who was ill, who was taken to get treatment at a hospital and has since disappeared. At the kiln, the Khmer Rouge screened the personal histories of those who were involved in the revolt. Later, I was evacuated again and again to do farming until 1979, when I returned to my village. I conclude my part, Mr. President. I'd like to cede the floor to my international colleague. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank my colleague, and thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon to all of you. I have 5 documents that I'd like to present linked to 5 civil parties which were all admitted under the heading the treatment of the Cham, and I'd like to focus essentially on the information linked to the facts that the Chamber is seized of regarding forced transfer, population transfer 2. And I will start with another document linked to the civil party, which my colleague just spoke about, Mr. Hakmat, who is from Svay Kleng. And I am referring here to document E3/4893. English ERN 0085126 to 65. French ERN 0090554 and 155. Khmer ERN 005781133 to 8136. So I'm going to read out the first paragraph here of this document, where it is stated, and I quote, free translation: after selecting the biographies, the Khmer Rouge evacuated my family and a great number of Cham, and none of them was connected to any kind of rebellion. However, in village 4 in Prek Achi commune, Krochma district, Kompong Cham province. And back then, the Khmer Rouge did not provide any reason for this evacuation. They simply gathered us on a boat that transported us to village 4, and we were escorted by young men from the militia. And when we arrived in this village, my family, that is to say myself, my wife, and my 3 children, lived under the same roof as a good old Khmer woman who was rather old, and her name was Tor. This was at the end of 1975. And then he indicates in paragraph in the following paragraph, there was a second transfer, and they transported us by boat all the way to Stung Trăng. At the beginning, they said that they were taking us to Battambang. And when we arrived in Stung Trăng, however, some Cham people were transferred to Kampong Thom, whereas others in my family went to Sopias village, which was located in Sopias commune in Stung Trăng district in Kampong Cham province. Another civil party from Svai Klieng, who is dead today, and her name is Li Taim, had the same fate as Hakmat after the rebellion was crushed. He went through Prek Chi, and I'm referring here to his document E3/6715 in Khmer ERN 0056 42553 255, and French ERN 001 20 30 07 208, with an English translation which was requested. And this civil party explains in a more detailed way in his supplementary information form of his application at E3/6715 small a, Khmer ERN 0058 5940-41, in English 011 84 736, and in French 01 20 30 67. And the living conditions and the measures meted out to the Cham are explained in Stung Trăng district after having been evacuated. And he indicates, and I am therefore speaking about the chapter called Religious Persecutions, and he indicates, and I quote, in 1977, I arrived in Sampias village, Stung Trăng commune, Kampong Cham province, where the Khmer Rouge forced the Cham to eat pork meat. And each time they sent 2 to 3 militiamen whose identity I did not know to watch over us in order to see that if we were indeed eating that pork meat. In the end, no Cham person dared to protest, otherwise we would be executed. And he indicates a little bit further down, towards the end of this chapter regarding religious persecution, I saw the Khmer Rouge order the Cham women, whose name I forgot, to go feed pigs. Dong forced Ta'el, who is deceased, to take care of the pigs in the village. The Khmer Rouge in the village forbade prayer and the Cham language under the threat of execution. However, sometimes we were able to do so in secret, and I do not know why the Khmer Rouge repressed the Cham religion in this way. Life under the Khmer Rouge was very, very harsh. Free translation. And the last civil party whose document I'd like to mention, and who comes from Svai Klieng, is Sos Mostot, who was 15 years old in 1975. And I'm referring here to document E3/6716, French ERN 020 30 11 to 30 14, Khmer 00 56 35 17 to 22. And English translation was requested, but the document has not yet been translated. And this civil party, who also was detained in Poprok Pagoda which my colleague spoke about, indicates regarding the transfer of her family. And here I am in the middle of the page in the French version. Later on, the Khmer Rouge took my family and the other villagers into a boat and transported us to Rokoknol village, Rokoknol commune, Krochma district, Kompong Cham province. I remember having been evacuated at the same time as Lisuki's family. And he indicates in the following sentence, we lived in Rokoknong village for 2 years, I believe. In this region, I had to graze oxen within a team whose chief was named Prey, who since has died. I did not know the chiefs, the village chiefs, or the team chiefs, or the cooperative leaders. In this village, the Khmer Rouge did not force the Cham people to eat pork meat, but they forbade us to speak the Cham language, to practice our Muslim religion, and to let us grow our hair long. So I have two other civil party applications linked to the Cham, but I'm looking at my colleague because I think that we also have documents to present regarding the treatment of the Vietnamese. So I'm going to speed up. Two civil parties who both were admitted under the section of the treatment of the Cham, and they were transferred, one from Kompong Sim district to Chamkalu district, and I'm referring here to document the document of civil party Sat Liep, and this is document E3/6816, small a. This is the supplementary information form of Sat Liep civil party application, Khmer ERN 005-88463-265, French ERN 008-60859 to 860, and English ERN 008-53984 to 985. Sat Liep was 26 years old in 1975, and he indicates, and here I'm speaking about the second paragraph of the document of the supplementary information form here, and I quote for translation, in 1975, there were 7 members in my family. There were me, my wife Mat Abnas, 2 sons, Lip Pukri and Lip Sulsari, and my 3 daughters, Lip Mas, Lip Safias, and Lip Srefas, and myself. My family was living in Ronia village back then, Sombomia commune, Kompong Sim district, Kompong Cham province. This was translated from the text. A little after the Khmer Rouge had defeated the Lon Nol's army, some unknown Khmer Rouge soldiers ordered the evacuation of my family and all of the villagers, a total of about 1,000 people, from the village to the village of Kompong Krabai, Kompong Cham province. At 11:30, we arrived in this village where the Cham were also living, and my family settled in this region, and the Khmer Rouge ordered us to work in the rice fields. And last document, this is a civil party by the name of Kasim Tolos, who was evacuated from Kosotin district, therefore in Kompong Cham province, and he was evacuated to Battambang. And I'm referring here to document E3/4776, English ERN 0091594, French ERN 0001063310 to 3311, and Khmer ERN 00497121 to 7122. And this civil party was very young in 1975 because she was only 10 years old. And she says, and here I'm at the first paragraph of the document, when Phnom Penh fell in 1975, the Khmer Rouge expelled my family that was made up of 8 people, my parents, my 2 older brothers, Tolos Ni and Tolos Les, 2 younger brothers, Tuluas Hin and Tuluas Kaup, and my youngest sister, Tuluas Srefas, and myself. We were evacuated from village number 13, Kosotin Commune, Kosotin District, Kompong Cham Province, and we were evacuated to Wat Cheng Village, Battambang Province, with many other of our neighbors, such as Kop Sin, Kop Ches, Kop Mak. And after about 2 months in Wat Cheng Village in Battambang Province, the Khmer Rouge, whose name I don't remember or did not know, deported my family to Srakeo Village, Srakeo Commune, Battambang Province, Sector 5. And during the rainy season of 1977, my younger sister, Tuluas Srefas, contracted dysentery and died of starvation. And I am done now, Mr. President, with the presentation of the complementary documents related to the Cham. And I'd like to give the floor to my colleague Pik so that he may provide a quick presentation of the documents that we would like to tender regarding the treatment of the Vietnamese. Thank you, Mr. President.
Good afternoon once again, Mr. President and Your Honors. I would like to present key documents on the treatment of Vietnamese. Another document, E322/13A. I will not read his whole document, but I only refer you to the document number E22/13A, said the legal lawyer for civil party. It is about the treatment of Vietnamese. There are a few civil party applications which I want to present the chamber, but somehow I will briefly present those documents. The documents mention about the treatment of Vietnamese, particularly the husband and wife, as well as the children. The first document is Civil Party Chen Pile, document E3/5900.1. This is an interview of this civil party by the Documentation Center staff member. Eon in Khmer is 00352748-50, English 01133203-05. There is no French translation at the moment. However, we requested the document to be translated into French on 21st August 2015. I will not read the whole excerpt of that document, but only a small portion of his document. The interviewer's name is V. Jia. Let me quote. V. Jia, you went to dig the canal, as you have mentioned, in 1977. At that time, had the Khmer Rouge begun killing the Vietnamese? Answer: I don't think that the killing had started yet in 1977. Vichia: did the Khmer Rouge start to kill the Vietnamese before you went to dig the canal, or did they start to kill them after you had returned from digging the canal? Answer: the killing started only after I returned home. The Khmer Rouge were angry about the Vietnamese invasion, so they began to investigate and search for the Vietnamese. Did the Vietnamese invade along the border? Answer: I did not see it with my own eyes. Which year? I see. Answer. I saw that some houses in the village were burned down. Which year? After you returned home, the Khmer Rouge started a search for the Vietnamese. Is that correct? Answer. Yes, it is. Which year? How did they begin the search? Thai. They began to search for those who were Vietnamese. Those who was Vietnamese. Which year? Did they begin to search the elderly as well as the young people? Thai. Anyone who had link to the Vietnamese would be taken away. If the husband was a Vietnamese, he would be taken away. If the wife was a Vietnamese, she would be taken away together with the children. I am now moving to another document. The interview of a civil party, Madame Kun Samet. Document E3/7211. And this document consists of another number E3/7586. And I am now quoting the EON. EON in Khmer 0035-3071 through 72. And I have no English EON for you, Mr. President, but the French is 01155167. And Danny is the interviewer. Let me quote Danny. Did Uncle Kun Mon's wife know that they would be taken away and killed? Answer. Yes, she did. Any day there was a meeting, the unit committee talked about the yuan. Danny. What did they say? Samet. They said that the Vietnamese people were not allowed to live with the Khmer. They had to be collected and cleansed from Khmer. At first, we thought they would send them back to Vietnam. We did not know they were rounding them up to take them to be killed. Danny. How did she feel when she learned they were being gathered up? Samet. She realized. Danny. How did she feel? Was she afraid, crying? Samet. She was so frightened that she became pale. And the same document at EON in Khmer 0035-3073 and French is 01155168. English is 00324465. Let me quote once again Samet's answers. The next morning, they came to take their children to meet with their mother. I begged them to keep one of them, but they were refused. At that time, my older brother also begged for one, but they recalled him and made trouble for him another at night too. Taman's older siblings felt so sorry for their nephews, and they asked for one to stay with them, but they were refused. All of those children were taken to be killed. They re-educated them and instructed them, saying, why should the yuan be kept alive to pass on the bloodline? Kill them all. Danny. Did they say that they had killed them all? Samet. Yes, they did not keep them alive for fear they would pass on the yuan bloodline. My brother said that. They called him, but they did not call me. I am now moving to another document. Pai Strung. written records of the interview, E3/5632, he made mention about the deportation of Vietnamese out of Cambodia to Vietnam. Document the year and number in Khmer is 00897516 through 18. English is at 00678299 through 300. French 00899197 through 98. So let me quote as follows. Deportation to Vietnam. In July 1975, a few days before our transfer deportation to Vietnam, we were told by the Khmer Rouge to prepare to leave. We asked where we were going to go, but they did not let us know. We did not have a right to ask anything. Before they forced us to go back to Vietnam, nothing was said to us about where we had to go. But it was understood that they were trading us for salt to the Vietnamese government. The trade of salt was in exchange for Vietnamese person to be recused by Vietnam. I did not see any salt or rice for my exchange, but I heard about it from others, and I believe that it was true because if there was no such an exchange program, Vietnamese would not be allowed to go back home. If we had not been able to get our transfer to Vietnam, we would have definitely died in Cambodia. I was living in District 10, in parentheses, Boribo District, Kampong Chnang Province, and everyone had to be transferred down to port at Kampong Liang District, Kampong Chnang Province. When we were at the port, we saw that the Vietnamese people from Cap Mountain District 16, in parentheses, were also transferred from the mountain to the port. Everyone was forced to leave from Cap Mountain, and it took us about 1 day to go from Cap Mountain to the port. All the people who were transferred from District 10 and District 16 in Kampong Chnang were placed in a boat to leave. All the people who were ill died along the way. There were many of us. I can't remember how many. We all just grouped together. We were grouped together, and then we left. We left Kampong Chnang by boat at night time and passed up Phnom Penh on the way to Vietnam down the Tonle Sap River. There were about 7 or 8 Khmer Rouge cadre with us on the boat. I remember when we passed Phnom Penh. It was so dark at night, and I noticed there were no lights at all in Phnom Penh. Upon our arrival in Vietnam at around 4 p.m. the next day, we were dropped at the coast, and the Vietnamese authorities came to collect us. I did not see any discussion between the Vietnamese authorities and the Khmer Rouge officials about the exchange of persons for rice and salt. Any agreement between the two authorities would have been reached beforehand. When we reached the border, they did another check, and anyone who was Khmer or Chinese had to stay on the boat and were not allowed to go onto the shore or coast. The Vietnamese were allowed to leave the boat. At the Cambodian-Vietnamese border, they controlled and identified who was Khmer and who was Vietnamese. They identified the Vietnamese from the Khmer because Vietnamese spoke Vietnamese and Khmer spoke their own language. Mr. President, I will need 10 more minutes to conclude my presentation, or am I allowed only to present only the title of the document, or I may need time tomorrow to present my key document, President. So I will give you a bit more time tomorrow to present your key document. It is now appropriate time for the adjournment. The hearing will be resumed tomorrow on 24 February 2016 at 9 a.m. The Chamber will continue to hear the presentation of key documents in relation to the treatment of the three targeted group, Ajam, Vietnamese, and former official of the Khmer Republic. And the defense team for Mr. Khieu Samphan will have the opportunity to present the key document after the presentation by the lead co-lawyers for civil party. Security personnel are instructed to bring the two accused, Nguyen Chi and Khieu Samphan, back to ECC detention facility and have them returned into the courtroom tomorrow before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.